On the 31st of May 1916, the first scouting group was sailing ahead of the High Seas Fleet in the Skagerrak Sea, and in support of them was the second scouting group, which was composed of light cruisers, and among these cruisers was SMS Wiesbaden, which was commissioned on the 23rd of August 1915, making it relatively new. For this operation, Wiesbaden was under the command of Captain Sir Fritz Reiss, along with 589 officers and crew. None of these men knew the pivotal role their light cruiser would play in the upcoming clash between dreadnoughts. At 15:20, the light cruiser Elbing, which was a part of the second scouting group, spotted a smoke cloud to the southwest. As a result, the first scouting group altered course to west-southwest, and then they turned northwest. At 16:23, the silhouettes of British battlecruisers were made out, and the run to the south would begin. For this phase of the battle, the second scouting group was positioned to the east of the first scouting group, which was the unengaged side. As a result, they would play no role in the opening action. At 17:51, the first scouting group would order that both the first and second scouting groups reverse course to the north, beginning what became the run to the north, as the battered British battlecruiser line would attempt to run the Germans into the Grand Fleet. While sailing north, the fortunes of the second scouting group would change, as at 18:36, smoke appeared to the northeast, and this was the light cruiser HMS Chester. Frankfurt, Palau, Elbing, and Wiesbaden would all open fire on the Chester, and being heavily outnumbered, it would reverse course and begin running to the north, and the second scouting group would pursue it. Little did they know that Chester was running towards the 3rd Battlecruiser Squadron, which had yet to be spotted during the fighting. On the other hand, the 3rd Battlecruiser Squadron could see the flashes of the second scouting group's guns, and as a result, they would adjust course to close range with the German cruisers, and at 18:55, they had spotted the Wiesbaden and opened fire on it. This would take both the first and second scouting groups by complete surprise, as they were now in between two separate British battlecruiser lines. Invincible, the flagship of the 3rd Battlecruiser Squadron and the leading vessel, would open fire on the Wiesbaden, and after several salvos, it would land a 12-inch hit. The carnage of the first hit that Wiesbaden would take was described in detail by leading stoker Zenna. He stated, "It must have been about 6:30 when she was first hit. A tremendous blow was felt, and the light went out. As soon as it had been switched on again from the accumulators, it was found that a shell had penetrated into compartment 6, putting both engines out of action. There was great danger from escaping steam, the hissing sound of which could be plainly heard. All the after part of the ship was already full of it, and the heat could be felt, even in the fans. The fan turbines slowed down and finally stopped altogether. Once again the order passed down, this time by word of mouth, like a cry of despair through the ship. Full speed ahead, both engines. And the reply came back. Engines disabled, struck by heavy shell, engine room abandoned. Due to this devastating hit, the Wiesbaden would slow to a halt and had to be abandoned by the other cruisers of the second scouting group. It found itself dead in the water in the middle of the British battle line during the height of the fighting. Naturally, the Wiesbaden would become an enticing target for many of the British crews, especially those of the 1st Cruiser Squadron, whom would rush in to close the distance on the Wiesbaden, hoping to finish it off, but in return, the 1st Scouting Group's battlecruisers would fire on the British cruisers and destroy the defense. During this time frame, HMS Onslow, which was under the command of Lieutenant Commander John Tovey, whom would go on to be the Commander-in-Chief of the Home Fleet during the Second World War, would close into approximately 3,500 yards of the Wiesbaden, and it would launch a torpedo at it, which was claimed to have struck amidships in the vicinity of the conning tower, but in reality it struck further aft, around the area of the propellers and rudders. Zenna would describe this event as well. He stated, "Shortly after 7 o'clock, a shock was felt throughout the ship, worse than any that had gone before. A terrific dull explosion followed, and it felt as though the ship and all on board had been hurled into the air. She had undoubtedly been hit by a torpedo, and immediately afterwards the order was given, abandon ship." Unknown to the crew at that moment, abandoning their vessel was not a realistic option, as they were effectively under the fire of the entire British battle line. The battlecruisers Tiger and Lion, along with the battleships Agincourt, Revenge, Hercules, Iron Duke, Bellerophon, Marlborough, Superb, Thunderer, Royal Oak, Monarch, Vanguard, Colossus, Collinwood, Conqueror, St. Vincent, and Temeraire, along with the cruisers Yarmouth, Falmouth, Dublin, Southampton, and the destroyer Onslow, were all firing on it. The scene was recalled by leading seaman Bowden from HMS Yarmouth. He stated, "Wiesbaden was stopped and helpless, but still firing one gun. That was soon out of action. We were firing at point-blank range, 1,000 yards in our sights, rapider individual firing, and believe me, they got a peppering." What's fascinating about the Wiesbaden during this time frame is that even though it was under hellacious fire, the crew still managed to launch at least one torpedo which would strike HMS Marlborough on the starboard side in the vicinity of its forward boiler rooms, causing the ship to take on a 7-degree list. The scene on board was described by Zena. The wreckage of the two after funnels was hanging over the side. The still remaining half of the foremast was full of holes. The No. 3 starboard gun had disappeared entirely. In the place where it had been was a black gaping hole stretching across the deck amidships. The lifeboats had been burned in the davits, and the motorboat on the moat deck was in flames. At 2000, 4 torpedo boats from the 3rd Flotilla attempted to close in on the Wiesbaden and evacuate its crew, but under the fire of the British battle line, they had to withdraw. Later on, after the Germans had launched torpedoes at the Grand Fleet, forcing it to turn away, the same destroyers attempted to close in on the Wiesbaden and evacuate the crew, but this time around, they were unable to locate the cruiser. After failing to locate the Wiesbaden, the 3rd Flotilla would determine that it had sunk, and as a result, they would withdraw without saving a single crew member. Zena would describe what had occurred. The wooden raft was lowered from the stern of the Wiesbaden, and not a moment too soon. A dreadful, hollow, gurgling sound was heard from the interior of the ship, and, with unexplained suddenness, she listed to starboard, right up to the rails. The Wiesbaden would sink at approximately 2:45 a.m. on the 1st of June 1916, taking 589 crew with it. Zena would be the only survivor, and he was not picked up until the 2nd of June, having been in the sea for approximately 38 hours. He was collected by a Norwegian fishing boat. Today, the wreck of the Wiesbaden resides upside down in an area of poor visibility, which means our full understanding of the wreck is rather limited. Regardless of how the wreck is today, Wiesbaden played a pivotal role during the Battle of Jutland and goes on to make one of the greatest stories in maritime history. With that having been said, I have nothing more I wish to add on to this topic for today. So, if you have learned something new in this video, why not leave a like and a comment down below, and have a wonderful day.